go, Uncle Joe. Give me more, let me go, Uncle Joe. Give me more, let me go. When you had your pocket full, you not been tell me morning. No, because your money done your hustle, but tell me morning, morning, neighbor.
Greetings all, my name is Gavin Mendonca. I am a local folk and rock musician, best known for teaming up with my brethren Chucky from Buxton Fusion and for being the innovator of Creole rock. Way back in 2010, I got my first guitar on a family outing to Berbice. I went into a store and there was a little cheap dingy guitar and I bought it using the first of my savings in my recently opened bank account. So my first investment in life was a guitar. And I got that guitar because I had recently started listening to rock music. Green Day and Blink-182 and bands like that that my sister and my brother used to listen to. So I got myself that guitar just out of curiosity and I started to play. I started to teach myself to play my favorite songs, and that's how it all started. I started to teach myself guitar, and then I started a punk rock band called Keep Your Day Job, and that allowed me to experiment. I didn't know how to play guitar, but we started a band, but that encouraged us to keep learning and learning, and then I eventually joined Feed the Flames, a local heavy metal band, where I started to play bass guitar. And the combination of bass, acoustic guitar, and learning heavy metal, again, very DIY, do-it-yourself, allowed me to progress at my own pace as a musician, being self-taught. And that the ball just kept rolling. After I threw the first ball, it just kept rolling and rolling, and until now, 12, 13 years later, I am a full-fledged professional musician. So between 2011 and 2015, my band was, we were doing our own shows at Sidewalk Cafe, at the Girl Guides Pavilion, hosting our own rock shows in the local rock scene. And the more I performed, the more I realized that this is what I wanted to do as a profession, to be a professional musician, not just a hobbyist. So in my presentations, I would get some feedback from, I would say, not just the general public, but from very specific people who knew what they were hearing and what the potential that they could see in me. And they said, hey, Gavin, when you sing, you're sounding like Blink-182 or you're sounding like Green Day. And I did some self-reflection and realized that indeed, in the process of learning to play these songs, I was essentially mimicking my favorite bands. So including the way they would sing. So I would sing like a non-Guyanese. When I would actually listen back to my videos and my performances and started to pay attention to that matter. So I was given some advice to say, Gavin, try and be a little bit more authentic. And it was at the Rupununi Music and Arts Festival that with my band Feed the Flames, we decided to do a couple of rock versions of folk songs. So the songs we did were Bamboo Fire and Dave Martin's Not a Blade of Grass. So those were our first attempt to take Guyanese songs and to do them in the style of a rock band. And we realized we had something unique. But it's also at the Rupununi Music and Arts Festival in 2015, the same one that I met Chucky from Buxton Fusion for the first time. So an elder by the name of Uncle Dio saw my rock band doing the folk songs and Chucky with Buxton Fusion doing their folk songs. And he said, you with your acoustic guitar, play with Chucky, y'all, two of y'all as a duo, play some folk songs together. So right there on the spot, we started to play folk songs together. We never met each other before, but Chucky just playing the drums, teaching me some folk songs, Small Days, Bamboo Fire, Jane Engage, and we performed for the first time together. And at that moment, in the Rupununi, under the Rupununi stars, I realized that identity is important, and I realized how I could maintain identity in my work by taking Guyanese folk songs as a reference, the way they're sung, the language used, the dialect, the melodies, and fusing it with rock and roll, the extra noise and raucous motions, and that's how I created Creole rock. So Creole rock is essentially this fusion and dialect with rock and roll.
When you've been a kurupang, you know been tell me morning. No, because your money done, you come with an even morning. When you had your pocket full, you know been tell me morning. No, because your money done, you
immediately after the Rupununi Music and Arts Festival, we came back to Georgetown, and I recorded my first solo album, Creole Rock The Beginning, with Cross Color Records, and I included the rock version of Not a Blade of Grass on it, as well as a few originals. I started to write original songs as well, and again, to sing about Guyanese stories in a Guyanese way. So I wrote The Great Rebellion, which is a song about coffee and the 1763 Berbice Slave Rebellion. I did a song called City by the Tides, again, which allowed me to find my voice. The same way as talk, I realized if I sing the same way, well, that's my identity through song. I started to write more, I started to record more, I invested in recording gear, and I started producing my own music, and we continued to produce shows, and we ended up with my band doing Embassy. Between 2015 and 2018, Chucky and I would do one-off gigs together whenever I had solo acoustic gigs. But in 2019, I took a step further where Chucky and I decided to really become a unit and start working together. And that's how Folk It Up was born. So from Creole rock and my love and passion for rock music, I started to develop even further inclination to maintain identity through my music. And again, playing folk songs was the best way as a musician to learn. I started communicating with people like Dr. Ezzy Ratcliffe of the Yoruba Singers and David Jure from Jure's School of Music. And I was able to observe them, even perform with them sometimes, learn from them, sometimes by just watching. And again, inside of me, I felt the need and the importance and a responsibility to incorporate just more local into my presentations. And I became very passionate about cultural preservation. And Chucky and I started to perform more and more together. And in 2019, we started the Folk It Up campaign, where from January to December of 2019, every single Friday at midday, we would go to the Courtyard Mall, just Chucky and I. We would set up a little PA system and we would play folk songs for about 2 hours. And there we were, right on Robb Street, the little pavement Courtyard Mall. And we would see people passing by in minibuses, people young and old walking past us, hearing and seeing folk songs, sometimes almost in amazement, like, wow, these songs still exist? So I realized that folk songs were dying. And again, we wanted to help to keep it alive. So now I focused more on a acoustic presentation with Chucky. And it started to pick up because there we were in public, in the streets, performing folk songs. And that got us a lot of attention as well. Mind you, between 2014 and 2019, I started to travel a lot. So every year I would at least do 2 or 3 trips to different music conferences. Through the Rupununi Music and Arts Festival, I was able to go to Colombia at the end of 2017 to this event called Circle Art, which was a big music conference for Latin America. And there I was able to meet other music industry professionals and for the first time participate in a forum like that, and I was exposed to so much more. It blew my mind. I gained a lot of knowledge. I met festival directors, and from then I started to travel. It was actually there that I met a man by the name of Angus Finnan, the then president of Folk Alliance International, which is the largest folk music conference in the world held in the US. So in January of 2020, just before the pandemic, I went to the US, I went to New Orleans, and I participated once again as the first ever Guyanese to go to Folk Alliance International. And that's a community that loves world music and culture, and to meet me from Guyana for the very first time was a big deal for them. So here we are in Guyana, hoping to get exposure, hoping to get out there, when people around the world are dying to be exposed to our kind of culture because they just don't get it. So at Folk Alliance International, I was able to reach an even wider audience, an international audience. And I play my folk songs. I was alone, but I still represented Guyanese culture to the best of my ability. And from then, I started to get invited to Folk Alliance every single year. And then the pandemic came. I actually barely made it home in time. So while the pandemic was a slightly depressing time, through gardening, I was able to create a whole new energy around me, one that felt fulfilling. I actually felt content with where I was as a musician. But Chucky and I started meeting up again, and we said, "Here, what, Chucky? The world shut down, but I don't mean we got shut down." So I invested in some gear, a Zoom H8 and some microphones, and we started to record virtual concerts because while festivals had shut down, virtual festivals became a thing. And there was actually a period of time where it now became easier to get involved in festivals around the world because it was all virtual. So we took advantage of that. And we went under Tamarind Tree and recorded our first virtual festival where we did a 20-minute set of Guyanese folk songs. We recorded it, my brethren Ziggy filmed it for us, and we released it online. And through that, we were able to get booked for many virtual festivals around the world. And then, again, creating opportunities when opportunities don't exist. We said, Chucky, let we do your own thing. We got to record Folk It Up Volume 2. We went into the studio, we recorded Folk It Up Volume 2, Cross Color Records released it. 2021 came around and we say, Chucky, we spent the last 6 months learning a bunch of folk songs. We're ready to record Folk It Up Volume 3, but let me do something different. Prior to that, we actually did a 10-day tour of the Rupununi where we raised some funds and we went to Atta Lodge, to Iwakrama, to the Canopy Walkway. We hiked up Turtle Mountain and to Rockview Lodge, all with we gear, recorded a performance at the top of Turtle Mountain, released it online, and it started to get again, views from Folk Alliance International, the networks I had made around the world. Fast forward to 2022, and we said, look, we do this thing in the Rupununi. We want to record Folk It Up Volume 3, but this time we want to add a layer. So we are already contributing to the preservation of culture and folk music in our Folk It Up project. Let's add the element of rainforest conservation. So we reached out to Iwakrama Rainforest, and we went through the necessary channels. Now, when recording in these protected areas, I find it very important. And when recording in indigenous territories, I find it very important to get permission. So that was how we were able to go to Atta Lodge, to Iwakrama. We reached out to like the Tushawa Fairview Village. And of course, Iwakrama helped to facilitate that. We also went through the National Park, the Protected Areas Commission, when we did how to build a treehouse at Kaitro Falls. And when we went to record, we even reached out to the EPA when going to, because we're going to record live music in the rainforest. We are disturbing some habitats and that kind of things, right? So we still had to be conscious and considerate of the natural environment and the people in the area as well. From all the work we did between 2021 and 2022, we were able to reach an even more global audience with our work. I continued to travel after the borders opened up. I went to Folk Alliance International again. I went to a couple of festivals around the world and in the US, and that brought us to Barbados in 2023 when Gavin and Chucky, for the first time, we performed together in Barbados, the first international trip at the Bridgetown International Arts Festival. Again, proving to ourselves that 5 years ago we had a plan to develop a repertoire of Guyanese folk songs, to contribute to the preservation of it, and to eventually start touring together. In 2024, I went to Your Roots Are Showing in January, where I performed as an official showcase artist, taking Guyanese culture for the first time there. And after my showcase as a solo performer, the organizers came up to me and said, hey, Gavin, we saw the videos in the Rupununi, we saw Folk It Up, the albums, we saw the Iwakrama Rainforest, thanks to you. Bring Chucky next year and let's have an official showcase. And we did just that. Gavin and Chucky were in Ireland, but I decided to take it a step further, where a dream of mine was to always tour with a rock band. So while Gavin and Chucky were official showcase presenters, we decided to add a layer of rock and roll so I could take Creole rock to Ireland as well. So the presentation was Gavin Chucky, thanks to Uncle Dio, the man that put me and Chucky together in the first place. He was able to sponsor Chucky's son, Mark Adams, who joined us as well. And I added in Nicholas Chung, my drummer from Feed the Flames, and my brethren Brian Can, Blinky from Trinidad. And we put together this super group. And I was able to take Creole rock to Ireland. And again, it was very well received. We were able to show, and we started off our showcase as just Gavin and Chucky, where we played Guyanese folk songs as traditional as could be. And then we play Uncle Joe, give me more, let me go, Uncle Joe. And then coming into Morning, Neighbor Morning, Blinky and Nick snuck onto stage, and out of nowhere, they came in with the bass and the drums, and I switched on my distortion, and the crowd erupted because we went from traditional folk in an instant to Creole rock. So we were able to show the transition and to show how we as young people are preserving our traditional way of music while incorporating contemporary art forms by fusing traditional folk and rock and roll. I actually, for the last 4 years, haven't really written much original songs. But my time in New York at school allowed me to write more. So I now have about an album of original songs in Creole rock style that I'll start recording soon. And if you look at the videos from Your Roots Are Showing, you'll see the format that I intend to use, which is Gavin and Chucky at the core in the middle with my acoustic guitar and the djembe, encompassed by the rock band. So at the core, it's traditional folk style, and then I got the layers of rock and roll integrated into it. I just want to continue to be able to share Guyanese folk music with young people especially, and I hope that Creole rock versions of these folk songs would help to attract more young listeners who might be able to relate to the style of music even more and find it appealing, but also is more than just if you like the music or not. Is a patriotic responsibility, I believe, to feel inclined to want to learn our folk songs and want to respect and appreciate our folk songs. So I am actually hoping that through the Ministry of Education, myself and Chucky would be able to do a school tour where we go to different schools all around Guyana and not just perform folk songs, but do workshops. Teach folk songs in schools. Teach basic African rhythms on the djembe in schools. Because if we teach young children to appreciate them, by the time they become teenagers, by the time they become adults, they already have it ingrained in them to appreciate folk songs and our culture. What we're doing is not to get rich and famous. What we're doing is a service to ourselves, first of all, because we love to play music, and a service to Guyana, because we find it important and necessary to contribute to the preservation of Guyanese folk songs and our culture, which is why Gavin and Chucky will continue to travel the world endlessly, bearing the golden arrowhead on our sleeves as we take Guyanese culture to new parts of the world. And we look forward to doing it more and more as the years progress. And if you would like to contribute to Gavin and Chucky, we're not asking for money. I just want you to go on YouTube or go and find one of our videos and give it a thumbs up. Just watch it, indulge in it, share it, especially with young people. If you're a teacher, use it as reference and sing folk songs with your nursery school students. Sing Small Days, sing Jane Engage, sing our folk songs in school again. Let we form little circles outside in the national park and sing folk songs. That's how you can contribute to Gavin and Chucky, because our mission is to contribute to Guyana. And if you contribute to us, you contribute to Guyana and the preservation of our folk songs and culture.
We ain't backing down.